men and women just can't get along. But for the first time, scientists are close to unlocking the mysteries of why we sometimes hate our mate. Take a look. Since Adam met Eve, men and women have fought, bickered, and tuned each other out. Now, for the first time, scientists are beginning to unlock the mysteries of why we fight with our mate. The answer may lie deep inside the brain. Imagine the brain is a 4-lane highway. Men are driving all the way over on one side. Women use all available lanes. It all starts in the womb. Boys get a burst of testosterone that triggers development of the left side of the brain, the side that makes men good at directions, math, and sex. As girls develop, the female hormone estrogen sparks more connections throughout the brain, both left and right sides. This extra horsepower makes women good at multitasking. Another difference? Language centers in the female brain are bigger, which helps explain a woman's gift of gab. That's why when we fight, the male brain wants to get to the point quickly and move on. The female brain wants to talk it out. It seems we are hardwired for a battle of the sexes. So to show you how this all plays out, especially for those of you at home, we're going to play a little game called the Battle of the Sexes. All right? So I want you to meet our contestants. Kendra, how are you? And Mike, how are you?
Fine.
And they're from Maryland, is that right?
Yes, that's
And
right.
you got, is that 6 kids?
Yes.
Is that right? So they've done pretty well for themselves. Here's how the game works. So Eddie and Kendra are going to sit there very peacefully. And before the show, I asked each of them to write down the answers to 3 questions, just to figure out how well you know your mate. And your answers are written on the cards in front of you. So we're all ready to go. Ready to play?
Ready.
Yep.
All right, Eddie, here's the first question. How long does it take Kendra to get over a fight?
Do you have a couch for me to sleep on? I'll say 2 days.
2 days?
2 days.
Go ahead, Kendra. And the answer is 1 day. All right, now, the reason why Kendra actually often senses irritation a little longer and is frustrated by things is because she's got an overactive mind. Women are naturally supposed to be a little bit more attuned to the world outside of them, and especially be aware of the dangers in the world because they've got to bring up the kids. So they've got to be more alert to that. So that makes sense. So you're following the biology. All right, Kendra, when Eddie is driving and gets lost, which is, I'm sure, a fairly often process,
Right.
very common. All right. Does he use his GPS? Does he stop at a gas station and ask directions? Or does he just drive around in circles?
He definitely drives around in circles, even to the point of running out of gas.
Is that right? All right, Eddie, let's see the answer. I suspect stops at the gas station. Now, why would Eddie get that wrong? Because I believe Kendra. Of course, Eddie runs out of gas. The reason is that Eddie's left brain is a dominant brain. Doesn't access the right brain because he's a guy. And the right brain gives you that sort of intuitive, holistic view of what's going on in the world outside of you. So Kendra, believe it or not, Eddie doesn't know he's lost. Right? That's the fundamental holdback.
I believe that.
And so when the women are getting mad at you, you think you got the whole thing worked out. You're not asking directions because you're not lost. If you're not lost, why would you ask directions? And so that's a very common example of how our biology predicts our behavior. All right, last one. This could be the big one. Eddie, what was the month and year of your first date? And now I do have a couch for you.
The month and the year of our first date, April 2001.
All right. Kendra, let's see it. Oh.
It was May. You went away. Our first date was at the Silver Diner. That was May when you went to Colorado and you came back.
Is it a leather couch or?
It sounds like my home. Well, just to defend poor Eddie there, the hippocampus sounds like hippopotamus. That's sort of the memory center of the brain for these kinds of emotional issues. Women just have a bigger one than guys do. So women remember when you met, who you dated before you met, when you dated them first, right? They got the whole thing figured out. And so actually, you're not hardwired to remember that, and Kendra, you absolutely are. Thanks for being such great sports, Eddie and Kendra. Appreciate it. Now, when I don't know the answer, I go to the best to learn it. Dr. Daniel Amen has studied more than 50,000 brains to learn why men and women bicker. He's also a psychiatrist and the author of The Brain in Love. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I got to ask right up that, how do you study 50,000 brains?
Well, we've been doing it for a long time. We do a study called brain SPECT imaging. SPECT looks at blood flow and activity patterns in the brain, and it just gives you so much very interesting information.
All right, now for everybody out there, just to make it clear, this is not sci-fi, but it's actually happening today. We actually brought examples of different scans that you selected for us. So if you look about why people sort of bicker so much, why they can recall things, I sort of get that. Can you look at these scans and figure out how people respond when they're bickering, when they're not?
Yes, in fact, what we typically see is she'll have trouble letting things go.
Right.
He'll have trouble paying attention.
So if people are focused and fighting, they have different brain images than if they're unfocused, diffuse and fighting.
Right.
So then how do you give them advice based on that? I mean, how do you sort of look at a couple that's not getting along and get into why they're not getting along and help them accordingly?
Well, for me, it depends on how their brain works. I mean, there's some simple rules for everyone. And so I give them a technique, I call it the bathroom technique. It's when you find out she's stuck on something, tell her you have to go to the bathroom. Because you just need to get away for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then she'll be fine.
Does that sound useful, guys? All right. So what are the rules for women that you think might be most helpful to allow them to communicate with their mates based on what you know about how their brains are working?
Well, number one, use less words. If you want him to listen to you, too often women overwhelm men with words. Men then get distracted, and then they get irritated, they shut down.
And in addition, I gather that there are other factors that women could use as they discuss with their mates, ways of changing their behavior. For example, do you need to say it more than once?
Well, that's what we find. Women, they get resentful. It's like, I'm not telling him more than once. And I always say, you have to ask him more than once because he forgets. I mean, don't take it as a personal thing against you. It's just, that's how
what if he's
things are.
watching TV and you're trying to talk to him? What about multitasking?
No, don't do that. Because especially in the fourth quarter of the basketball game.
Right.
See, she can pay attention to everything that's going on, and for him, it gets him distracted and irritated.
All right, so now we flip it around. What are the lessons that men ought to take to heart as they speak to the women that they love, but are periodically bickering with?
Well,
what if I said, honey, can you get to the point, please? Does that work?
yeah, not really.
No. I found that also. It doesn't work very well.
Yeah,
Now, why is that?
Not really, because she has language on both sides of her brain. Men typically have language on the left side, women have language on both sides. So they just have a lot more to say. When you tell her, could you just get to the point, she feels offended. And don't try to solve her problems, just listen. If you just feedback what you hear without telling her what to do, she'll figure out what to do.
That's a wonderful point. I get that from my daughters, because they come to me with an issue, and I immediately want to get in there and fix it because I'm a surgeon.
Right.
And they say, you don't have to fix the problem all the time. Just hear the problem. You can't always fix the feeling. You got to actually expose yourself to it a little bit. And what about a big mistake I see a lot of my friends make? I, of course, never make it, which is to treat your wife like your buddy.
Don't expect your wife to act like your best guy friends. It won't work. Just know that you're wired differently, and to that point, help her with the house. This is so critical because a woman has a larger limbic brain. She also has a larger nesting instinct. So her house is absolutely critical. And if you can be really helpful to her at home, guess what? She'll have more energy, which means she'll have more energy for you.
I like that. I've been married almost 25 years. I wish I'd met you earlier. It could have saved me a lot of heartache. I'm sure a lot of guys out there feel the same. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Amen. Dr. Amen has been opening my eyes and the eyes of other physicians for years with his great insights into how the brain works. I also want to thank our couple, Eddie and Kendra, for joining us and playing with us. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.